I'm back. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Chase and I am here to review Dynamite from March 15th live from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and featuring a huge main event of the House of Black versus the Elite versus the JAS. Now, this video is coming to you pretty late, so we're probably going to do like 0 views, but I have been very, very sick. As a lot of you will know, I was in California for AEW Revolution and AEW Dynamite, and I came home and basically the trip brought back my insomnia, which was pretty terrible. And then after a few days of no sleep, I ended up getting the worst case of cold flu that I have had in my entire adult life. So that led to a good 3 or 4 days in bed. Of course, my illness was foreshadowed at the Revolution scrum when I sneezed and Tony Khan had to say,
"Bless you."
But today is Monday when I'm recording this, and I'm feeling quite a bit better, which is very, very good. This is a Dynamite that I want to talk about so much, so I had to make this video to get my thoughts out there. This lighting is wild, but I refuse to close my blind. I'm doing this during the day, and if my voice seems really off, I am still recovering from everything. But before we get into talking about wrestling, let me remind you to please subscribe to this channel. I know at least 50% of people watching my videos don't subscribe, and I just think that's rude. So please subscribe. And also go over to Twitter, give me a follow at Stephanie M. Chase. You'll find me on Instagram under the same name, as well as TikTok. And check out my OnlyFans and Patreon linked in the description below. What a Dynamite this was. This was not the best Dynamite ever. This was not the worst Dynamite ever, but this was a great talking point Dynamite. They were doing the most on this show. They were really doing the most in order to create things that we could all be talking about. And I want to talk about it so much. Get ready for some spicy hot takes. We started out with MJF's bar mitzvah. I was raised as a Catholic girl in Ireland, so I have never been to a bar mitzvah, but the pictures that MJF shared on social media of his bar mitzvah, Maximania, looked incredible. And I just want to put this out before we go into his bar mitzvah of how good his original bar mitzvah was. And MJF is such an interesting person because he plays a heel character so well. He stays in character 24/7, but the absolute love that he has for pro wrestling that you can see when you look back on stuff like this is so endearing. It is so endearing that this kid wanted his bar mitzvah to be wrestling themed. He had these tickets with different WWE superstars from the time on it, including John Cena and Shawn Michaels, and he had one with Chris Jericho on it. And I just saw that and thought, it is amazing to think that he, however many years later, 13 maybe, actually wrestled Chris Jericho. What an achievement. So I just want to put out there, I don't know anything about bar mitzvahs, but I'm pretty certain that Max had the best bar mitzvah ever when he was 13. Anyway, time for the bar mitzvah. So MJF comes out. He had 4 ladies with him. 3 of these ladies kissed him on the cheek, and then 1 took home the big payday because she full on snogged MJF. He's done this before. I think no, he made out with that girl. What did he make out with the tattooed girl? I can't remember. He did make out with his actual fiance at one point, but now they're broken up. He's going to be snogging random girls on TV again. So least said about that, the better. They are in Canada, of course. He told everyone that Shawn was better than Brett. Hard agree anyway. And then he made a joke about losing his V card during his bar mitzvah, which I'm not even going to get into that considering he's 13, but whatever. Then we heard Jungle Boy's music. Now, straight off the bat, I will say that I think Tony Schiavone blew the spot here so hard because Tony Schiavone said something like, "Oh great, we have guests," which I was watching with Benno, and immediately Benno was like, all the four pillars going to come out now because Shivani had said guests instead of a guest. I do think that Shivani blew the spot. So Jungle Boy came out. He was going to speak. Before he could speak, Sami Guevara's music hit. Party crasher indeed. And then before Sami could speak, Darby Allin's music hit. By this point, MJF was wearing a bucket hat. I would like a fairy bucket hat, and I would like to commend him on his bravery. I bought a fairy bucket hat about a year ago to try and be on trend, but it just looked so wild that not even I could wear it out of the house. So I commend MJF on actually wearing the bucket hat in public. I rewatched this promo bit this morning and wrote down some stuff because I'm not sure if this got a mixed reaction. I think it was more a positive reaction online. Um, People loved the four pillars all being together in the ring. I will say that my flat blanket take on this segment is good on paper, not that good at execution. So I'm gonna just break down what each guy said and the positives and the negatives. So we started with Jungle Boy. He is of course coming off the great Buried Alive match with Christian that I loved so much, and I loved his entire feud with Christian. I've talked about it on Twitter. It really resonated with me hard. Anyway, he said that the last time he faced MJF was at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view in 2020. It was a pandemic pay-per-view. There was no crowd, and MJF cheated to win. He then said after that you went on to be handed opportunities. While I wrestled on Dark, you've never wrestled on Dark. You've never been on Elevation or even Rampage. I thought this was a very strange thing to say. Like this idea, very fourth wall breaking of Jungle Boy to point out, I've been wrestling on Dark and Elevation and Rampage, and you've never done that. It just makes, we know that Dark and Elevation are not even B shows, but D shows. Rampage has become a B show, despite the assertions that Tony made when it started that this would not happen to it. And I just felt like Jungle Boy flat out buried Rampage there. MJF is too good for Rampage. We know he's too good for Rampage. A lot of the roster are. And him just saying that, I thought was so bad. And then he also talked about people busting their asses and they might only get 60 seconds on this show while we all have to sit through MJF promos. I don't like stuff like that either. I think that is also quite kayfabe breaking. This idea of people working so hard for an opportunity on the YouTube shows, but they don't get it on the big show. I don't really know what that means on kayfabe, because really, if they were winning all their matches, of course they would be elevated, pardon the use of that word, to Dynamite. That just rubbed me the wrong way too. But it was not the worst thing. I have to say that Jungle Boy did a pretty good job here. I really thought he spoke pretty well. He's kind of hit or miss in the promos. He's still learning a lot when it comes to delivery. One thing that he needs to work on is some aspects of his delivery, because he can sometimes come across like a bit of a dick without meaning to be. And I think because of what the character of Jungle Boy Jack Perry is, he needs to tone down the dickishness. That's something I see it more pronounced with Action Andrade, who just comes across as a dick no matter what he says, and we're meant to believe he's a babyface. But anyway, speaking of people that come off like dicks, next up was Sami Guevara. I would never ever advocate for writers in pro wrestling until watching a promo like this, what Sami came out with here. I thought this was really bad. He started off saying careful or I'll turn this rebar mitzvah into recircumcision. That was a good line. I immediately just thought that he was probably given that line by Jericho or someone, because I just don't believe it came out of his brain. Because then the very next thing he says is, you talk too much to MJF, which is so begging to be used in Botchamania so hard, which is Sami all over. He can never not pander. He is the biggest panderer with how, everything he does in the ring when he's meant to be a heel, all of that. I was just like, okay. Then we got the part that I hated the most. He said that Max talked his way into the door of AEW, but he had to work on the indies for 10 plus years, and he had to work at Whataburger and Subway. Then, when he finally got to AEW, he was told he was only supposed to be the inner circle's job guy and a bump guy for Chris Jericho. And then he said, I'm not like you. I never had the machine pushing me. I had myself. This was hella bad. Hella bad. So, firstly, congrats, Sami, for working on the indies. That is what most wrestlers do. Then talking about, like, I worked at Whataburger, I worked at Subway. We have most of us who haven't grown up in extreme privilege, had to work jobs that weren't ideal to make a living before we fulfilled our dream. Okay, so asking for any extra credit for that, um, uh, I don't like, you don't get any extra credit for that from me, but you certainly don't get it when you're Sami Guevara saying it. Okay, Sami may have had this long path in the indies to get to AEW, but I cannot think of someone in AEW who isn't like a top guy, who's been more pampered than Sami Guevara. Later on, MJF brings up, which he should not have brought up, locker room brawls. And you think about stuff that Sami's been involved in, whether he was the instigator or not, or whether he was the worst person involved or not. But this guy, I really get the feeling, has a guardian angel and has been pampered and allowed a lot more leniency than other people. So to me, like, he's like the last person that I want to hear say that they've never had anything done for them, they've done it all alone, and it's been such a struggle. I don't buy that from Sami Guevara whatsoever. And an extra reason of not buying it, if we're going to stay in kayfabe and not talk about any backstage incidents, is the fact that he came into this company in the inner circle. So therefore, in kayfabe, he was paired with Chris Jericho, who was the company's world champion. So him doing this, like, I did it all by myself thing, like, no, you were paired with Chris Jericho, and then you tried to go off on your own. It did not work for you at all, even though you became TNT champion. And now you are back with Chris Jericho, benefiting from being with him so much that you are main eventing this Dynamite. He goes on to say that he was supposed to be the inner circle's job guy. Please tell me what a job guy is, Sami, in this context. Please. And then that he was also meant to be Jericho's bump guy. Also tell me what that is. This guy is airing like grievances about how no one's helped him, then telling us that he's been paired with Chris Jericho, and then like almost like slagging him off by saying, oh, I was just meant to be Jericho's bump guy. That is the guy you're teaming with in the main event, Sami. Like, I just thought this was so bad. And I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me or whatever on this, but I just thought this was kayfabe breakingly bad. And I would never give him a open mic again without someone going through what he was meant to say. And if someone did script this for him or give him the pointers of this stuff to say, such as inner circle's job guy and things like that, like, they need to have a think too. And then he threatened us by saying that he'd be world champion one day. Anyway, sorry. I think I've been sick for so long that maybe I'm just testy. Anyway, I'm going to go back to being a nice girl. Then Darby, great line. Hold your applause till after I'm done, please. I love that. That was the funniest Darby's ever been. His promo was pretty good. He said he told a story about he was in film school, but he dropped out because they wouldn't let him be Darby Allin, and then that's when he started wrestling school and kind of promised himself that he was either going to make it or fail as Darby Allin. And then he said that he's told Tony that he's never leaving. And then he said the biggest problem with his company is wrestlers whining on Twitter. And you have like MJF doing the bidding war of 2024. And he said if he doesn't get the match, he's not going to whine on Twitter. He's going to hit MJF with a skateboard and give him a headlock takeover, which is a callback to the match they had at Revolution 2022. Darby's promo was pretty good. I have to say, he didn't say too many things that I thought shouldn't have been said. Then MJF brought up the Sami and his fiance stuff. I think that's fine to bring up because Sami did propose to his first fiance on TV, so it's kind of like part of canon. And then MJF told us all about his fiance problems himself. Then MJF basically said that all these guys have had veterans helping them accept MJF, and then that he is the only pillar that keeps this place up. So objectively looking at this, if I didn't know too much about um the ins and outs of everyone, I think I'd probably come down on the side of MJF because um he is right. Sami has literally been babysat by Chris Jericho since day one. He's been babysat by him so hard that he was able to walk away from the inner circle and then get a spot in the JAS. That's how much they're tied together. Darby's had Sting, and Jungle Boy did have Christian for a period of time. So I would kind of come on the side of MJF. As for what I want to see coming out of this, do I want to see a four-way? No, four-ways suck. I don't think Sami should have any involvement in this, not just because I don't think he's very good, but I don't think it works in storyline either with him being part of the JAS. Jungle Boy, I think storyline wise is the best candidate because he's coming off the Christian thing, and that's really good. However, who I think is the best candidate in general to carry this, I would say, is Darby Allin. I think MJF Darby Allin is what I'd like to see coming out of this. But my overall thoughts on the segment, as I said at the beginning, I think it's something that read good on paper, but I don't think was executed well. For some reason, they decided that they wanted to do this four pillars thing on this night. And I'm not sure that it made sense to do it on that night with, Sami being in the main event and with it kind of just coming out of nowhere. So it was very cool to see the four pillars all together talking to each other, even if I didn't agree with everything that was said. So I'm giving it kind of like a B grade on you really tried for something, and you missed the mark on some points, but overall enjoyable segment, a memorable segment, and I did like it as much as I did find bits to rip on here in my review. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to being a nice girl. We then saw Chris Jericho getting his childhood street had an honorary renaming to Chris Jericho Way. That's very cool. Congratulations, Chris. I will say, if you read the Observer's write-up on this, I almost felt like Dave was doing a hit piece. But anyway, this review is not professional, it is not slick, but I hope it is fun. Blackpool Combat Club, that's Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta, defeating Hangman Page, Evil Uno, and Stu Grayson. I think it was Excalibur who said at the beginning of this match, we thought Hangman was done with the Blackpool Combat Club after defeating Jon Moxley at Revolution, but no, there's no shit, Sherlock. We really did think this was done, but it must continue. Stu Grayson, I've always been a fan of. I think he's very good, and he is now all elite again. So nice to see him back. This match, it was absolutely fine. Grayson did take the fall though. He got a pop-up uppercut by Castagnoli, and then he landed the rear naked choke from Moxley, and then Moxley won, and then they beat down Evil Uno more, and then John Silver and Alex Reynolds hit the ring to chase off Moxley, Yuta, and Castagnoli, who all ran out through the crowd. So the Blackpool Combat Club are heels now. You guys know that I've never been high on the Blackpool Combat Club at all. May I plug my factions video? And maybe it's just this sour taste of William Regal is still lingering in my mouth, but not high on them. And we'll get to what happened. I think I'll save my full thoughts on all of this to the end of the show, but I do find it super surprising that after the match we saw at Revolution, that Hangman Page and Jon Moxley are still embroiled in a feud. And if there's one thing I wish I could have said about last week's Dynamite that I didn't get to say, it was, why the hell was Jon Moxley wrestling? That was wild to me. He had just done this Texas death match, and then he was just fine to wrestle on Dynamite. I thought that was really, like he should be like in the state of Danielson, who's off TV. And there's been this whole thing about like John Moxley's fishing trip that he didn't get because he had to hold the company up when all this other stuff happened. And it's like he doesn't seem to want this fishing trip. Like this storyline is going on, and we'll get to potential reasons why at the end. Juice Robinson did a promo on Ricky Starks. Another thing I wish I got to say about last week. What did Ricky Starks do to deserve this? Was it his stalling on the bat spot in Revolution? I gotta wonder, because this is just funny to me. Like Juice Robinson is one of those guys that to me will always be just a guy. I just don't see anything in him, but I certainly don't see enough in him to warrant him being Ricky's next feud after Chris Jericho. Like Ricky was feuding with Chris Jericho, and there were people having these endless debates about whether or not it benefits you to feud with Chris Jericho, whether or not, like, and saying Ricky is going to be stuck in the Jericho verse for like 6 months. I would rather him be stuck in the Jericho verse for 6 months than feuding with Juice Robinson. Like, I think this is a massive come down. I don't know why it's happening, but it's totally bizarre. Of all the like people predicting what was next for Ricky Starks after Jericho, nobody had Juice Robinson. It was very funny when they teased it with playing the Bullet Club music. I thought it was going to be like El Fantasmo. So who knows what this is leading to? But all I can say right now is this is not juicy to me. A very interesting segment. Jade Cargill defeated Nicole Matthews in like under a minute to pick up her 54th win. So Jade Cargill the week before claimed to have defeated everyone, which is so not true because she exists on a different planet than all the other women in the roster. She never comes face to face with, your Brits, your Jamie haters, people like that. So she hasn't defeated everyone, but like let's say for the sake of argument that she has. So she needed a Canadian woman to step up to the plate. This was Nicole Matthews. I'm not very familiar with, but I saw people talking online that she's a 17-year veteran that wrestled in Shimmer. There were people online when she came out that were like, yay, good for Nicole. This is amazing. Oh my God, Nicole's finally got a moment. And literally by the time they sent on that tweet, she had been pinned by Jade Cargill. So Nicole was like a sacrificial lamb here because the real surprise was Taya Valkyrie. Taya Valkyrie came out. They have signed Taya Valkyrie and they're setting her up to be Jade's next challenger because like they both have the same finisher. I thought this segment was I just felt really bad for Nicole. I thought it was like lazy in a way, and it kind of feeds into my conspiracy that they had not planned out properly what to do with Jade. If I was given Jade to book from the start, given that she's a totally green wrestler that is has only been in AEW, she hasn't been seen anywhere. I think I would have had more like meticulously like planned out stuff, and I would have her probably drop the TBS title at 50. Now, if she had been producing like amazing, amazing matches, I would maybe let her go to 100, but I would say maybe like drop the title at 50. But I think it's been clear for the past couple of months that they've had no real plan for Jade, and it's just very willy nilly. Like she wasn't on Revolution, and I heard some people, mention like, oh, Jade doesn't have a match in Revolution. Wow. And I would argue that most times that she's appeared on pay-per-view, her match has not been pay-per-view worthy because it has never been built up properly, because she's never really been given proper storylines, and I really don't think that they know what to do with her. She's incredible. Like she's an incredible talent for AW to have, but I don't think they know. They just don't know what to do with her. So my little theory is that, I mean, when she got to 50, her opponent was Red Velvet, that it should have been someone bigger than that. I would have brought in like either the person that's going to dethrone her for 50 or like a legend or someone. But they got to 50 and Yeah. And then they probably thought that 55 is the next kind of like significantly okay number to do. But then they realized she'd only be on 54 when they were in Canada, and they didn't want to waste Taya Valkyrie on being number 54. So they thought, let's do this gimmick where everyone thinks it's Taya Valkyrie, and it won't be. It will be like a way less known girl, but then, shocker, the outcome's Taya Valkyrie after. I would just love to see them put more planning into what they're doing with Jade. I want to see a direction for her that eventually leads to her being part of the women's main title picture. However, if I was her, I would be hiding backstage to make sure this doesn't happen to me until this Outcast stuff is over with. But that's just me. Then we had the debut edition of QTV. Obviously, the ending of last week's Dynamite was quite the controversial one because Hobbs won the TNT Championship with the assist from QT Marshall. A lot of people weren't happy about that. Then QT Marshall wasn't happy that people weren't happy about that. A lot of childishness on the internet happening too. A lot of people need to be given some kind of Twitter training. However, I don't think that is possible. So this is what QTV is. It's a rip-off of TMZ, which to me seems like a dated reference. Um, Hello to RJ City in the background. Obviously someone that deserves better, but glad to see him on TV. And they basically showed a video of Aaron Solo breaking into Wardlow's car, stealing the TNT title and also his passport. So that's why he's not in Canada. Um, this was so dumb, though I would have gladly played the blonde reporter, but it was still so dumb. I don't know how this got through. Honestly, this to me wasn't WWE. It was more NXT 2.0. Um, just just bad. I don't know why they want to do this, and I don't know why they're doing this with Hobbs. They spent weeks doing these Book of Hobbs vignettes, which were very serious, very hard hitting, and very real. And this is comedy. This is like bad comedy. So I don't know why they're putting this on Hobbs. It seems so strange. I can't even say, well, we'll see how it goes, because I don't see this going well at all. But there you have it, QTV. Then Hobbs issued an open challenge on Rampage for the TNT Championship. Thought that was pointless because they told us just minutes later that the challenger is Ray Phoenix. So, okay then. Okay, then we came back to Orange Cassidy defeating Jeff Jarrett for the newly named international title. Renaming of the international title and the tie-in with Shazam is quite funny to me. I have no idea. I still have no idea what Shazam is about and why, oh why it has anything to do with this title or leveling up. But anyway, this match was messy but really fun. It was just full of interference, all that stuff. I would enjoy Jeff Jarrett a lot more, I think, if he wasn't connected to Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Sanjay Dutt, who I just don't think are a great group. I think he would be way better doing a loner, um, like Johnny Cash Man in Black style gimmick, more like what he was doing before he was signed by AEW. Something like that I think would endear him more to me. I think that a lot of people thought that he was going to get the title here, and have really been enjoying his run more than they thought they would. I think this match showed why we can't put the title on him. I'm not sure he's like capable of being a champion and doing like these great matches to defend it. I think everything has to be very overbooked and stuff. There was lots of silly referee stuff here. Aubrey and Jarrett were getting into it when a guitar shot nearly happened. Orange Cassidy like did a fake injury. Bryce, he was distracted, so Jay Lethal, who was pretending he had a broken arm, hit Cassidy with a golden globe, but that only got him a 2. And then Trent Beretta came to fight off Jay Lethal, and then Jarrett almost got the stroke, but Cassidy avoided it and hit the orange punch victory. I did think the match was fun, but it was very silly. as well. The Acclaimed then did a music video which they appeared to film in a hotel while a meet and greet was going on. Not really sure why. Then they were like called out by 2.0 later in the show. I do hope this feud happens because I want to see 2.0 actually be used in the tag division. I think that's kind of a problem with some people in factions, that they kind of get lost, and 2.0 are very much getting lost just being in the JS. So I'd love to see them feud with the Acclaimed. I think that'd be super fun. Then the Outcasts came to the ring. I'm just gonna say flat out, I thought this segment was awful. I haven't liked this Outcast stuff from the start. I've been totally honest about that. I think it's bad. I think it's badly written. I think it's I don't want to say like it's offensive to women, because that's way too strong a thing to say. But it does feel very, I think maybe demeaning is too strong a word too, but it just really plays into like the worst mean girl tropes. It feels so juvenile. I mean, we had Ruby Soho talking first, talking about like the grass is meant to be greener in AEW, and then bitches came and pissed all over it. It's just bad. Basically, the big thing was Saraya saying the word twat and then handing off the mic like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Then Toni Storm, who I think is an extremely likable person and she'd only be a baby face, is like, hey, fat people or something. It was just so bad. Like, if we're gonna have like female heels, can we please portray them as anything else than these women who are stuck in a mean girl era of getting on like this, and then adding it, of course they've got this spray paint crap as well. um I hate it. We have, then we had the baby faces come out, so Britt Baker, Jimmy Hayter, and they were helped by Rio, Willow Nightingale, and Sky Blue. I love Britt, love Jamie. I think a lot of my problem with this stuff is how much I think Jamie deserves to be in a way better storyline than this, and just the massive missed opportunity, even though they can and will do it in the future, of doing a proper Jamie Britt feud that seemed to be completely sidelined when Saraya entered. This whole thing just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know who is involved in the creative of this, the production of this, but I just, I don't know. I would love them to study or look at any form of media with female characters who are not teenagers, and just look at like some other ways that we can portray women other than this, like just standing there and being like, you're fat neck beards and you're stinky. Yeah, they actually, yes, stinky was actually used. It is, to me, it's just bad. I don't want to see this on my TV. I really don't. There are stories that you could have absolutely told with Saraya as a face or as a heel, that it just wasn't thought out properly, it wasn't planned properly, and we've gone to like the lowest possible thing that we could have done. There was an adult story to be told, and we're just playing around in the sandpit here, and I don't like it. The main event. Woo! Okay, this when they announced this main event, it just made me laugh, because Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega are arguably two of the greatest wrestlers of all time. They happen to be from Winnipeg, so when AEW makes his Winnipeg debut, obviously you're going to put them in the ring together with 7 other men. Like, that was the call to make. But this match was super fun. So the House of Black defeated the Elite, Kenny and the Young Bucks, and the Jericho Appreciation Society, Chris Jericho, Daniel Garcia, and Sami Guevara. The match was super fun. The crowd were really into it, as they would be. Oh, we got a shot of Ted Irvine in the front row, WCW legend Ted Irvine. That was cool to see him there. The crowd wanted Jericho and Omega so much to like lock up, and they teased it many times. And then I think when they did do it, didn't get enough time. But I think every kind of little spot that we got to in this match just didn't get enough time, because there was so much going on. It was undoubtedly a really fun match, and I think that they did the best that they could, considering like the constraints you're under when there are 9 men in a match. I think the only thing that, Brody King also had a great showing. He was portrayed as a total monster. I think something got messed up at the end. Jericho was the legal man, and then he like rolled out, but he didn't tag Garcia. And then it felt as if Garcia just walked into the House of Black, just like a sacrifice. He like volunteered as tribute. So I think something got a bit messed up there, but I think that they were definitely running out of time. There was also a lot of like just bad referee stuff. I know I was watching this with Benno, and he said something during it like, once you notice Aubrey, like you can't unnotice the bad stuff. You just have to try and like not look at her. And I think that's definitely true a lot of times when you're watching. I think that they don't do the best job of having the referees be distracted. I don't think that they're the best at that, and there's always a lot of reasons for referees to have to be distracted in matches. But overall, a great match. Kenny looked so good. He looked so good. It was as if he was in Japan. He looked really, really good. I loved his tights. Um, and it was so cool to see him in the ring with Jericho, because Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho started a lot of things, and it kind of can be seen as like the beginning point of AEW, what we have now. I really hope they do a big singles match together again, but I'm starting to think that's getting unlikely. But all in all, like, awesome main event, for what it was. For what it was, multi-man craziness match, it was as good as it could be. They cut away to the Dark Order and the Blackpool Combat Club brawling in the back, which seemed super random and super nitro. Um, but made sense at the end. As for like where all this is leading, I guess it might be the JS versus House of Black in a feud next, because once Garcia got pinned, JS were out of there, which I did think was surprising, with Jericho being in Winnipeg. But the story that they wanted to tell at the end of this match was not about him, because the BCC and Dark Order brawl then spilled out. And what happened was Hangman found himself in the ring alone, with Moxley, Claudio, and Yuta on the apron, when the Elite jumped in behind him to back him up. But Hangman did not turn round. We got the Fade to Black, Dynamite ended. Hangman did not turn round. We can debate forever whether or not we were meant to see Hangman turn round on TV. I think we were meant to see him turn round on TV. I think that was I think that's the visual that we were meant to close on, was Hangman seeing his former friends behind him. They ran out of time. I think that I just don't really know how to feel about this, because, like I was alluding to earlier, Hangman, I thought, amazing match against Moxley at Revolution, feud ender, like straight up. But not only do I think that it ended the feud, I think it changed something with Hangman. Like, look at him now in his leather jacket. I think he was given an edge. Like, he's always been the handsome cowboy, like the guy who is, battling these millennial problems, these anxieties, this like, does he believe in himself? And we've had him be world champion, and we've always had him with a friend group, whether it be the Elite or the Dark Order. But I was thinking that at the end of the Revolution match, he was now this standalone guy. He'd moved from the handsome cowboy to, dare I say, the sexy cowboy. And I don't even mean that as far as how he physically looks like, but just, an overall like sexy persona of how he now sees himself as a man and an individual. But alas, I was wrong, and he is just going back to this friend stuff. Um, I hated Excalibur on the call being like, what a moment. And this is before Hangman had turned around, which makes me think that he was meant to turn around. Because it wasn't I did not see it as an earned moment at all. And I just kind of wonder what's going on. We've heard about the Elite and Kenny contract status, and if they do leave, is the last thing they're going to do tie up this whole Hangman saga? I'm not sure if like that's for the best. I think it's one of those things that definitely, like, there's an element of the fan base, a very hardcore element of the fan base, that is all in, pardon the pun, but all in for Hangman Elite melodrama. And me, who is definitely a hardcore watcher, studier, analyst of AEW, um, I feel like I've just kind of moved past that. I think I'm more all in on Hangman Page being his own man. So it was a cool moment, but it felt very manufactured to me. It felt like it was set up for people on Twitter to side by side previous shots of the Elite standing behind Hangman with that shot tonight. And it's kind of like what I was saying about the first segment. Good idea, good on paper, but why now? And I'm unsure about the execution. And of course, we have maybe Anarchy in the Arena coming up at Double or Nothing, Blood and Guts as well. Maybe this is all leading to one of those matches. Again, okay, like let's say we do Anarchy in the Arena with the Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite. What more can we get out of Hangman and Moxley destroying each other with weapons, since we literally had a match where forks were used, you know? I don't know. But I'm not saying this was bad at all. It was good, but was it earned, and is it the right direction for anyone? Like Kenny, finally free of those trio spells. There's an opportunity for Kenny to be a single star, to be like, you know, best Bar Machine, Kenny Omega. He never seems to want to do that in AEW. Yeah, he had a world title one. He never seems to want to be the guy that he is in New Japan, the guy that faced Will Ospreay in January. Kenny never wants to be that guy in AEW. And it seems even now he's not taking the opportunity to be that guy, to have those big singles feuds. The Young Bucks don't seem to want anything to do with the tag division. They're not taking that opportunity either. Not if they're going to be locked in this thing with Hangman and the Blackpool Combat Club. So that's kind of where my uncertainties about all this stem from. But I can't say I didn't enjoy it. I can't say I don't love, I love Hangman, and I do truly love Kenny, and I can be very critical of Kenny, but it's because I have so much love for him. And believe me, I'm way more critical of other people than Kenny Omega, because there's a lot of things I give Kenny a pass on just because he's Kenny Omega, and he honestly means so much to me as a wrestler and has like impacted me so much as a wrestler that I'll never be mad at Kenny, but I definitely have questions. Okay, so that was my review of AEW Dynamite. What a crazy edition of Dynamite. Overall, I love the show just for the sheer wildness of it, for it giving me so much to talk about and think about. Like, I love it. I'd rather have a show like this every week than a boring one. So I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Didn't love every segment, don't have to. But I really enjoyed watching it. I really enjoyed talking about it, and I'm glad that I mustered the energy to talk about it with you guys. Now, as for who I was the biggest fan of this week, I'm going to give it to Chris Jericho, because they were in his hometown of Winnipeg. He got his little honorary street naming, which I thought was very sweet. And I do think that the company owes a lot to the Jericho versus Omega match. And I thought it was particularly good for Jericho to have this moment in Winnipeg. Jericho's done a hell of a lot for this company, and it was great for him to get this homecoming, this great crowd, all of that in front of his dad, get, this really cool main event match where he could be opposite Kenny in the ring. So congrats to Chris Jericho. That's not as big a deal for him as getting a street named after him and a medal, I guess, that has something to do with the British royal family, because Canadians acknowledge the British royal family, which is wild. I certainly don't.